Welcome back to the Nick Bartlett Show, everybody. My name's Nick Bartlett, and I'm a senior writer here at Super West Sports, as well as at OregonSportsNews.com. This week, it's pretty fun. We, objectively speaking, probably have the two best games nationally in our region. So this week should be a little bit bigger than maybe others. The four games I'll be breaking down in depth, giving you my picks on the spread, as well as the over-unders. That was a big sentence. But the four games I'll be covering this week are BYU at Texas Tech, Oregon at Iowa, San Diego State at Hawaii, and Northwestern at USC. I'll be doing two quick hitters as well, so I break those games down a little bit lighter. And please remember to like and subscribe, y'all. I'd appreciate it. I have a lot of fun covering college football. But hey, if I'm gonna get a little more subscribers for the site, for myself, put a little money, I think we all like money. So I appreciate the support, seriously. With that, let's just get straight to the action today. The first game is going to be BYU at Texas Tech. Looking at the notes here, I have a kind of notion of sometimes ruining my notes, but we're just going to get straight to it. No side talk today. The most expensive ticket in college football this week can actually be found in Lubbock, Texas. Can you believe it? I don't know if I can, but it's actually a pretty cool story. Mike Leach is smiling somewhere with a pirate sword and energy concoction by his side. Obviously, I'm a Cougar, so I have some, past familiarity with Mike Leach, so rest in peace. But it's cool to see, Tech having such a meaningful game. Obviously, they've improved their program. Obviously, BYU is killing it in their own right, but just a really, really important game this week. BYU enters this matchup undefeated. Texas Tech's only loss came at Arizona State, but they were without their starting quarterback, Baron Morton. The key for the Cougars in this contest is protecting the ball. Texas Tech has the second best defense according to FEI, and they rank third in the nation in turnovers forced. I'd never heard of the FEI before this week. It's kind of like a adjusted defensive efficiency type measurement rating. It seems like it takes into account kind of the strength of schedule, garbage time, things like that. So it's a little bit maybe more accurate than a points per game as I'd historically do. Also looking at Tech, though, third in the nation in turnovers forced. So the Cougs are going to need a plan to slow down David Bailey on this side of the ball. The ex-Cardinal has become an absolute beast for Tech. If you haven't been following his career, he's just proven a nightmare defensive end for literally anyone. He currently leads the nation in sacks. That's right, leads the nation with 11.5. He has a sack in every single game this year, and that's absolutely phenomenal. That's so hard to do, just to not have one off game. That's a model consistency right there. So again, Bailey's just become a force. Bear Bachmeier, he's going to have to kind of create some chunk plays with his arm this week. Again, with Bailey on the line and Tech's tough run defense, I just don't see Bachmeier doing his normal QB draw thing, 5 yards here, 5 yards there. And if he does, he's probably going to take some big hits, and it might actually get him knocked out of the game. So I'd like to see him utilize his arm a little bit more this week, and interested to see how Kailani Satake does. So, yeah, I'm just not thinking his normal rushing style is going to work against Texas Tech. First in rushing yards allowed nationally, so a little bit better than I thought. Best in the nation against the run. This also means that Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston will need to make a few contested grabs. Those are BYU's best two receivers. I think of Chase Roberts as more of a third down guy. I need to get a little bit more familiar in terms of seeing him live with Parker Kingston. Whenever I see him, he makes plays, but I just don't have enough of a deep analysis to give you here. I'd consider Chase Roberts probably more the third down guy, but bottom line, against a team like Tech, these two guys got to make plays. They got to. They've combined for 1,107 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns this year. You're thinking that if BYU is going to move the ball, it's probably going to be through the air. Tech, again, first nationally against the run, but a little bit weaker against the pass, 37th in pass yards allowed per game nationally, and BYU's 19th in points scored per game nationally. So they definitely have an offense. I've always described BYU as maybe lacking explosiveness, but they've proven me wrong the last 2 weeks. And to that guy on Twitter, will I pick BYU? He keeps telling me to pick against BYU because I've been struggling with my Cougar selections recently. So we'll have to wait and see for that. And as always, my fearless predictions get released later in the game today. So obviously when you're picking the spread, some win-loss results will get kind of, you guys will figure out who I'm picking. But the majority of them, I'm going to save them so you read the fearless predictions later in the day. My writing is probably a little bit wittier, and maybe the video is a little bit more random. But either way, I enjoy doing both. Hopping back to the notes here. I yelled. I was ready for this one. Wow. But getting back to the notes here. The Big 12, no, I guess we're done with the notes. Let me not kind of give you my final line. Looking at the stats though, Bear Bachmeier's throw for 1,693 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He's also had 408 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground. Again, I think he's going to have to use his arm this game. LJ Martin leads the team in rushing and rushing touchdowns with 789 yards and 5 tutties. LJ Martin, another one of those BYU guys, just really high IQ running back. Maybe doesn't have the explosiveness as some of the elite players nationally, but a really high IQ running back. Chase Roberts, as we touched on earlier, leads the team with 591 receiving yards. He's also had 4 touchdown receptions, has 32 receptions on the year. And pardon me for messing up this name because it's going to happen. Falatau Sataloa has 1 sack, 6.5 TFLs, 2 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles at safety. He also leads the team in tackles with 53. So that is a name that I'm definitely going to have to learn how to pronounce, particularly if BYU keeps on learning. My bad. The South Asian Samoan names are a little tricky for me. I try and be really good with names, but I'm still working on that realm in my mindset here. That realm in my mindset. That made no sense, but I'm glad it flowed smoothly. Looking at the pick here, the spread, Texas Tech is favored by 10 points. It feels accurate. It feels accurate enough. I do think Tech will cover. Again, I think Tech's really, really good this year, and BYU might be a tiny bit overrated, but they keep proving me wrong. So if they prove me wrong again, they're definitely not overrated at all. I think that honestly they might not be at all with the Utah victory in the Holy War a couple weeks ago. Looking at the over-under, I'm picking the under here. I like both these defenses. Think they limit each other a bit, so I'm going with the under. Again, the spread, Tech is favored by 10. I do think Tech will cover, and the over-under, I am going with the under in this contest. As always, do I got any song to sing to you as we scroll through? Nah, not today. I think the song's going to have to come through a little bit more naturally. You can't just say as always and then lead into a song. So what we're going to do here is just get straight to the next game, which is Oregon at Iowa. This is a matchup I'm really interested in personally. It's one of those games for me. I want to believe in the Ducks. I always want to believe in the Ducks because they're probably historically over the last 10 years the best team out west. But it just seems like they sometimes lose a big, meaningful game. And this one could hurt them. I don't think Indiana's necessarily a bad loss, but losing at Iowa would definitely hurt them. Again, not like Kirk Friends hasn't built up a phenomenal program there, but still a matchup you expect the Ducks to win. Hop in the notes. If this contest was last month, Oregon would probably be favored by a lot more. I think that's pretty obvious. The Ducks have looked beatable this month, or in the month of October, with a loss to Indiana, as we touched on, in a real ugly win at Wisconsin. I remember tuning in, checking the score at halftime last week, and I believe it was 7-7 at a point. And Wisconsin's pretty bad this year, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. So that doesn't necessarily bode well for the Ducks. Iowa started 3-2 this season, but they've won their last 3 contests to push their record to 6-2. They trounced Minnesota by 38 last week. That's pretty. It's hard to beat Minnesota by 38. All they do is run and play defense. So kudos to that. How do you beat a team by 38 when both you guys are running the ball every time? Doesn't matter. The key to this week's matchup, though, hopping back to Oregon, Iowa, is to improve UO's rushing attack. Oregon has multiple halfbacks who can impact the game. Noah Whittington, J.R. Hill Jr., and Jordan Davison each have over 350 yards rushing this season. And the Ducks rank 9th in rushing yards per game nationally. It should be interesting to see who controls the line of scrimmage because Iowa ranks 10th defensively in the same statistic. So you're thinking if Iowa can stop Oregon's run and maybe put some pressure on more on the road, this could actually be a pretty meaningful game. If the Ducks just run over them from start to finish, well, the Ducks will run over them from start to finish. Flipping the field, the Hawkeyes will need to find a way to get production from their passing attack. UI will likely be able to move the ball on the ground with the combination of Kamari Moulton and Mark Gronowski. But to keep pace with Oregon, they will need to connect on a few big passes. This is pretty much the weakness of their team. Really struggle to move the ball through the air. Again, Iowa's just a stout team, but they do lack productivity at wideout, so we're going to see how that influences this game. And UO allows the least pass yards per game nationally, so it's not going to get any easier for Mark Gronowski and the Hawkeyes here. I mean, when you're struggling to pass the ball and you're coming against the first ranked passing defense, that makes things tricky. Looking at the stats here, Dante Moore is still a Heisman hopeful. He's thrown for 1,772 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 4 receptions. He's also had 197 yards on the ground. Jordan Davison, one of those many running backs that the Ducks utilize, leads the team with 10 rushing touchdowns. He has 352 yards on the ground on 51 attempts. I think Noah Whittington's actually leading the team in rushing yards, but Davison does have those 10 rushing touchdowns. DeCorian Moore, freshman phenomenon at wideout, leads the team with 28 receptions, 443 yards. He's also added 3 touchdown receptions. And Tatum Tudioti leads the team with 8.5 tackles for loss at linebacker. He also has 35 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. For Iowa, touched on their limited passing attack. Mark Gronowski is thrown for 946 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Not a lot, but he has utilized his feet well. He has 313 yards on the ground and 11 touchdowns. Kamari Moulton leads the team in rushing yards and attempts with 82 and 435. He's also added 2 touchdowns on the ground. Sam Phillips leads Iowa with 204 receiving yards. He's averaging 17 yards per reception, but your leading receiver has 204 receiving yards. That's not good. That's not indicative of a team that can beat Oregon, but he is averaging 17 yards per reception. So Sam Phillips, dangerous when he does actually catch the ball. And Max Lewin leads Iowa with 6 sacks and 9 TFLs at defensive end. He also has 5, I kind of miswrote the stat here. I believe he has 5 tackles for loss and 2 forced fumbles. Don't quote me on that. I wrote 5 and 15 tackles. So we'll stick with the 2 forced fumbles. For Max Lewin, let's just stick with this. Leads Iowa with 6 sacks, 9 TFLs at defensive end, and he also has 2 forced fumbles on the year. For my pick for this game, I believe off the top of my head, I said Oregon will not cover the spread. I think they're favored by 6.5. I do not think Oregon's going to cover the spread. Just haven't been impressed with them, and particularly in that Wisconsin matchup. And Iowa's always tough at home. So again, yeah, Oregon will not cover the spread. What I got, 6.5 is right. Over under 41.5. Anytime Oregon's on the field and the over-under is at 41.5, I'm probably picking the over. So I just think Oregon's going to score points. Iowa maybe does enough to push the number over. So definitely going with the over here. And I think that's pretty much it for this game. But these top 2 matchups are probably the biggest 2 games nationally this week. So I always do a top 4, but just for kind of realistic purposes, again, you're looking at BYU Tech 1A. And Oregon, Iowa, 1B. You can flip that however you want. Flip it, script it, and reverse it. There's my rap for the day. I used to freestyle rap a lot, guys. I was never actually good, but if you've heard me one time, I have enough bars where it sounds good. But then if you want me to rap again, we're in a whole world of trouble. I tried it once as a bar as a kid, and the first time I literally got a standing ovation, and dudes were trying to buy me drinks. Why were girls trying to buy me drinks? I don't know. That's kind of sad. But then the second time I did it, I was bad, and I put down the mic and left the bar immediately. My Slim Shady moment did not turn out the second time around. Hopping to the next game here, though, in a game that I think, even though it's in like the Big Ten games nationally, I think it will get overlooked. That's going to be San Diego State at Hawaii. I made a promise to you Aztec fans. I told you win last week, you'll get here. Hawaii didn't necessarily live up to their end of the bargain, letting San Jose State pass over them for 722 yards. But SDSU won, so I got to keep them in here. They've really earned it. And if you're not following the Mountain West super carefully, SDSU is actually in first place with Boise State's loss last week to Fresno, one of those real unexpected losses in the Milk Can rivalry. Hopping into the notes for this game, if Hawaii had won last week, this game would have proven monumental, as it touched on. But with Boise State's shock, okay, I already said all that. San Diego State's in first, I already said all that. See, I just spoiled my notes, guys. Let's get to the new stuff. The Aztecs are 6-1 and have reeled off 6 straight victories after losing to Washington State. It is important to note, though, against the Cougars, it was Jaden Denegal's first start, and objectively as a Coug, San Diego State could have won that game. WSU kind of got hot real quick, and SDSU never could recover. But take away like one quarter of that game, you even match up and potentially a Aztecs team with 7 straight with an undefeated record. So I think that's fair to kind of point out. The key to this contest should prove whether Hawaii can move the ball through the air. SDSU is 9th in the nation in pass yards allowed per game. Players in their secondary like Chris Johnson, Dalashon Staley, and Dwayne McDougal are all playmakers. Bo's quarterback Mike Alejado will need to be careful where he throws the ball. SDSU is tied 14th nationally with 10 interceptions, so they create a lot of turnovers. And I believe they're either first or second nationally in points scored per game. I threw that stat out there last week, so I want to get you a new one. But again, 14th nationally with 10 interceptions. They're gonna force some turnovers, and it's not like Hawaii is definitely good. They've definitely improved, but this isn't like the elite national receivers. You can see better guys throughout the country. A lot of respect for what Hawaii's doing. I believe Jackson Harris having a good year for them. Same with Pofele Ashlock, but just not necessarily the elite receivers. Good, but not elite. Looking at Alhado again, he's solid, but he'll need his top two receivers to make plays, as we just touched on. Pofele Ashlock and Jackson Harris, the best two guys. The duos combined for 1,199 receiving yards and 13 touchdown receptions. UH ranks 7th nationally in passing yards per game. On offense, SDSU will look to exploit Hawaii's secondary. The Aztecs do struggle to pass the ball. I think that's fair. Denegal is still new. They don't have a lot of talent receiver outside of Napier, but Napier does have 45 receptions, 610 receiving yards, and 2 touchdown receptions. And just if you're looking at this team, I always go back to like a Madden roster, or I guess in this case, an NCAA football roster. But you look at it. Denegal's got some speed at quarterback. He's decent enough. Napier is a really good receiver, and Sutton is a really good halfback. So when you have those three, you should be able to move the ball. You're complementing that with a good defense. And Trey White, arguably one of the best defensive ends in the country. They have a great linebacker who I'm blanking on his name right now. So SDSU is a pretty complete unit. Obviously touched on the 3 players in the secondary. So you just have a complete football team. And when you have a guy like Sean Lewis, who was supposed to be brought in for a fast-paced offense, and you're killing it on the defensive side of the ball, that's good stuff all around and really explains why their record is the way it is. Looking at the extra stats, as always, Jaden Denegal is thrown for 1,415 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He's also had a touchdown on the ground. Lucky Sutton leads the team in rushing attempts, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns with 154, 820, and 8. Donovan Brown is the Aztecs' second leading receiver with 260 yards on 19 receptions. He also has 1 receiving touchdown. And Trey White leads the team with 6 sacks and 8 TFLs at defensive end. He has 31 tackles on the year. Trey White's going to be selected in the upcoming NFL draft, but I believe I told you that last week, but he is an absolute freak. For Hawaii, Mike Alhado, superstar freshman quarterback, has thrown for 2,124 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He's also added a tutty on the ground. Landon Sims leads Hawaii in rushing attempts and rushing yards with 94 and 439. He also has 3 rushing touchdowns. Landon Sims, again, killing it through the air. Also has 30 receptions, 231 yards, and 2 touchdowns. You're thinking if Hawaii pulls off the upset, Sims will be a big part of it. Always love guys with that Marshall Faulk dual threat ability. And we're talking 30 receptions, so he's an impact player out of the backfield in terms of catching balls. Jackson Harris leads the team in receiving yards and touchdowns receptions with 601 and 7, and he has 35 catches on the year. And rounding out the stats here, Jemiah Otis leads the team in tackles with 49 at linebacker. He also has 1 interception, 2 forced fumbles, and 2.5 TFLs. Looking at the spread for this game, I believe I picked San Diego State to cover it, and I believe I'm picking the under, but let me just double check here. Yeah, I do think San Diego State will cover. It's also 6.5 points, just like the Oregon game, and under 50.5. Just going with the under. I think SDSU's defense is going to limit Hawaii, and it's not like SDSU has a real explosive offense, not just yet. They have enough pieces to do things, but not enough to put a huge tally on the board. So I'm going with the under here. And again, I do not think SDSU will cover this, or I do think San Diego State will cover the spread. Final big matchup of the week, and I'd say this is a little bit lesser, but you always need a fourth, right? I was kind of debating between the USC and UCLA games, but the final one, as I touched on earlier, will be USC and Northwestern. Looking at the notes here, I honestly didn't realize how good Northwestern was, so that's why this matchup's going to make it a little bit better record than I realized. As I wrote in my writing, that's a big game. I mumbled to myself after seeing Northwestern's record. I'm sure you guys want to hear me talk like that. And to the notes here, the Wildcats enter this contest with a 2-3 mark in the Big Ten, barely losing to Nebraska last week. USC enters this contest having knocked off Nebraska last Saturday, so they both played Nebraska in their last contest. And for the Trojans, they played 3 out of their last 4 on the road. The key to this match is to prove whether NU can tally enough points to keep pace with SC. Northwestern's 0-3 when giving up more than 23 points, and it feels likely that the Trojans will eclipse this number. USC is going to score more than 23 points. I would bet a law on that. I'd bet like a house on that. The Wildcats will need – don't do that. This is not what this site is for. Make yourself a little money. Don't lose the house. But I would consider it. I'm just saying. No, seriously, don't. The Wildcats will need to convert on third downs and limit turnovers to help their defense and really stay in this game. Again, you're looking at USC with such an explosive offense, good rushing attack this year. A lot of people don't seem to realize that. They have a nice dual threat with Waymon Jordan and King Miller. NU's 8 turnovers in their 3 losses, so as long as they protect the ball, they might be able to hang around. If they turn the ball over, they're going to get smoked. The only problem with Northwestern strategy of protecting the ball and running it is exactly what I touched on. USC is actually better than Northwestern on the ground. The Trojans are ranked 20th in rushing yards per game, while NU is 29th. The Trojans have 2 halfbacks who've rushed for over 500 yards, so we touched on earlier. Waymon Jordan leads the group with 576 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. King Miller is also a viable threat. Mekhi Lemon is by far USC's best player in offense at wideout. He's a freak. USC always has receivers. Do you need me to explain any further? Lemon's 6th nationally in receiving yards right now. And halfback Caleb Komolafe is the Wildcats' best threat in offense. But again, they just don't have too much on the offensive side of the ball. Looking at the stats, Northwestern, Preston Stone is throwing for 1,372 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Again, you're looking at 1,372 yards, 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Basically sums up that their passing game isn't that good. Caleb Komolafe leads the team in rushing attempts, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns with 124, 608, and 7. Griffin Wild leads the team in receptions, touchdown receptions, and receiving yards with 39, 570, and 4. And Mac Uline leads the team with 4 interceptions at linebacker. He also has 59 tackles, 5 TFLs, and 1 forced fumble. That's a really good line by Max Uline. 4 interceptions at linebacker, 59 tackles, 5 TFLs, and 1 forced fumble. Definitely a player to watch in this one. USC, Jade Maeva is thrown for 2,315 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He's also had 103 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. King Miller's rushed for 509 yards and 4 touchdowns on 65 attempts. Mekhi Lemon leads the team in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdown receptions in just about everything, every category known to man with 50, 776, and 6 touchdowns. And Bishop Fitzgerald leads SC with 5 interceptions and safety. He also has 45 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and 1 sack. So Bishop Fitzgerald has 5 interceptions. Avoid him, or it can be a real long day. That is for sure. Those are the big 4 today. Give you my pick for this one. I know that. Actually, I don't know. I had the other 3 memorized. I actually don't remember. I believe I picked the over in this contest. Yeah, so over at 50.5. You can say the same thing for Oregon. When USC is on the field and it's not like Ohio State or Michigan level defense, I'm thinking they're going to ring up 38, 40 points. So I'm going with the over there. And looking at the spread, it is 13.5. No, I don't think USC is going to cover that. That just feels a bit big. I think talent-wise, USC should be able to do it, but it just feels like a bit too steep for me. Looking at the final 2 contests here, again, my quick hitters, those are the big 4. But again, USC will not cover the big spread and pick the over for this contest. Final 2 matchups, and these 2 this week really could have went a number of ways. But I figured these were the 2 most meaningful nationally as well as on the West Coast. I really did think about the kind of the quick hitters this week. First one is going to be Nebraska at UCLA. Really not too much to touch on here. If you're not following Nebraska super carefully, Dylan Raiola is out for the year with an injury, and that's gonna hurt them. Nebraska doesn't necessarily have an elite offense to begin with. I think they're like 40th, something around like 40th in points scored per game. So losing their starting quarterback's going to hurt them. It's just not good. It's not good before UCLA. Is there anything else I want to throw in here from this game? Just basically, these 2 teams could finish on opposite ends of the spectrum. Bruins were the laughing stock of the NCAA at the beginning of the year, and heck, win this one, their season's all right, and technically they could still win the Big Ten championship. Yeah, I know. For Nebraska, off to a good start, but now without Raiola, are they just basically going to fold it up and basically destroy their season? This game's really indicative for both teams about the future of their programs. Kind of a nice matchup. I'm usually more traditional, like my Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12. Remember when those were like normal conferences, not super conferences. But I actually like the kind of the juxtaposition of styles in this matchup, and I'm curious to see who pulls this one out. That's already way too much for a quick hitter. UCLA is favored by 1.5. I do not think the Bruins will cover. And for the over/under, I'm going with the under. Again, I do not think UCLA will cover. It's a 1.5. They're favored by 1.5 points. And over/under, I'm going with the under. Final game is going to be Washington UW. UW home, UW away. Purple UW, red UW. Yeah, okay. You guys get it. I've been saying UW a lot. Really for this matchup, again, not too much to know here. I'd say Wisconsin is really struggles on offense, but they played Oregon tough last week, so I wouldn't say they couldn't beat Washington. Again, playing the Ducks that tough was really, really impressive to me, and so I'm just not going to say that they couldn't beat the Huskies, particularly at home. The main thing for Wisconsin is they're still cycling through what feels like 87 quarterbacks. And it's like four, but they don't really have a consistent quarterback. Whoever played against the Ducks last week had a bad game, so it might change again. And when you're looking at an offense like UW, who has, as we've been saying all year, Damon Williams Jr., Jonah Coleman, Denzel Boston, and the emergence of Desmond Roebuck, this is a complete UW unit. I think UW's defense is a little bit underrated, so I think they're going to be able to hold Wisconsin in check. And I can give you a whole slew of reasons. I felt like I did too much for the first quick hitter. But bottom line, I think UW's going to win this game. Spread, they're favored by 11.5. I do think they will cover. I just don't think Wisconsin has enough offense to hang around and put pressure on the Huskies. Not saying it isn't close for a while, like the game in Eugene last week, but I just think that, again, at some point, Huskies' offensive firepower will put this one away. So that is going to do it, everyone. Thank you guys for watching the Nick Bartlett Show. I really do appreciate your support. Busy guy. It's been a good week, but I'm a busy guy. I'm running off to go coach a basketball practice after this. I haven't actually looked at the time yet, so hopefully I'm not late. But you got to do the show right first. Hey, priorities. You're gonna do something. Do it 100%. If you're gonna, I might have to run a few red lights. Anyone knows me knows that's the truth. But we'll make it. We'll make it. But concluding this episode again, this has been the Nick Bartlett Show. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, for the third time, I'm not saying a fourth time because that feels needy to me. But 3 times, yes, sir. Here's a quick recap of my picks for the spreads. Tech will cover, Oregon won't cover, San Diego State will cover, and USC won't. Again, Tech will cover, Oregon won't cover, San Diego State will cover, and USC won't. For the over-unders, BYU Tech under, Oregon Iowa over, SDSU. I feel like I got off there. BYU Tech under, Oregon Iowa over, SDSU Hawaii under, and Northwestern USC over. Again, BYU Tech under, Oregon Iowa over, SDSU Hawaii under, and Northwestern USC over. We're getting towards the end of the year, guys, and there's the games are just getting more meaningful. You got BYU Tech this week, you got Oregon Iowa, and this is what college football is about. If you're covering the sport, you're probably getting a little bit tired, but then you get that reinvigorated life because all of a sudden the college football playoffs around, bowl games around, Christmas is around, and things get sweet, things get groovy, things get cool. For those of you who celebrate it, I hope most of us do. Happy early Veterans Day. And thank you. I told you I wouldn't say it a fourth time. Deuces. And just, hey, make sure to, since I won't talk to you guys before then, if you got a veteran you care for, make sure to appreciate them, show them love. We live in a great country. Not saying it's perfect, but we live in a really, really great country. So honored to do this, honored to watch college football, and deuces.